This computer program will plot a sine wave. Two modules are going to be used to help us plot the sine wave, and we can see here that I'm importing matplotlib pyplot as PLT, and here I'm importing the numpy module as NP. I will consider these four program statements later in the video. I now wish to turn my attention to this program statement. This is showing me that I'm going to be using numpy, and I'm using dot notation, which means I will be invoking this code here, which belongs to the numpy module. Now, this is a function that's defined in the numpy module, and the function takes these three arguments. Now, this function will create 100 equally spaced values between this value and this value here. Now, this is a predefined constant that is part of the numpy module, and I can tell it's the numpy module because I've got np dot notation pi. So pi is the constant that's defined in this module here. And of course, pi is representing pi in mathematics. So if we look, we have 2 times np dot pi. So what we're seeing here is in fact 2 pi. So what this is creating is 100 equally spaced values between, in the context of this program, 0 radians to 2 pi radians. So this will create a numpy array of 100 values between 0 and 2 pi, and those values will be assigned to x. Now, x references the numpy array, and that numpy array will have the 100 values in, and I'll be using x along the x-axis of the graph, as you'll see later in this program. Now, this line will use the numpy sine function to calculate all of the sine values of x that appear in the x numpy array, and each of the values calculated here will be assigned to y. So the value stored in x will be the points along the x-axis, and y will be the points along the y-axis that correspond to the sine value of what appears in x. This is the next program statement to execute, and you can see, because I'm using PLT, it's telling me that I'm using this library because I've imported it as PLT. And look here, and you can see I'm using the plot function of the matplotlib library. And of course, I'm passing to plot x, which is a numpy array, and y, which is a numpy array. And what this line will then do, it will show the graph for us to observe. So let's have a look at what the graph will look like when you run this computer program. And there you can see the sine wave appearing. I will now turn my attention to these 4 lines of code, and you can see all 4 are using PLT, which has been defined here. So in other words, the PLT is going to be referring to the matplotlib library, and specifically the pyplot. And if we look to the first line, you can see that the string sine wave is going to be the title of the plot, and you can see that that appears here. This is going to set the X label for the plot, and this string will appear on the plot, as you can see here. Moving on to this line, you can see we're going to affect the Y label of the plot, and this string is going to appear on the plot, as you can see it does here. And this, well, this is setting the grid to true, which means that the plot will have the grid as the background, and you can see that these are the lines of the grid. So you can see that the program has created 2 numpy arrays, and it has used matplotlib, as shown on this line, to plot the sine wave that's based upon the contents of the numpy arrays.